Welcome to the latest episode of the National Leadiology Association. Today, we not only have one, but two special guests for you. It's a very special episode to us. It's one that's going to be very near and dear to my heart because of the background of these two wonderful people. But before we get started, my name is Dr. Amin Sanaia. I am your host. And with me, as always, my brother, tag team partner, co host, Tanner Thorp.
Hi guys, I'm Tanner Thorp, owner of TannerThorp.com, child of God, father of boys, and so happy to have these two special guests on here. I can't wait to get to know you both a little bit more and hear about how leadership impacts you and how you impact leadership in your different industries.
So, if you guys notice, Tanner doesn't have the leadership couch, nor does he have his typical background. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But I do like your background that you have there, Tanner.
Floating up here with God, right?
That's it, man. That's it. All right, so let's get to our special guest. Joining us today from uh, she's in Nashville. And if you want to really party on, that's the town to be in. Uh, Melinda Ramirez. Melinda, please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Hola, hola. Thank you so much, Dr. Amin and Tanner, and everybody listening to have me on here. I'm actually in Clarksville, an hour away from Nashville, so a little bit older vibes, a little bit of party, but enough to retreat and rest and relax. Hello, audience. My name is Melinda Ramirez, and I am the founder and principal consultant of Thai Phoenix Consulting, which is a multi-service firm that specializes in leadership development, emotional intelligence, and resilience. And I'm here today to share my experience as a proud Army spouse. Go Army.
Awesome. You forgot to say that part of, and we'll get into it, part of the workshops you do involve music.
All the
So,
time.
Oh,
so yeah, I mean, we got some fun stuff here. But let's hand it over to Louis. Louis, tell us a little bit. I mean, I love your story, man. So I'm not going to tell it. I'm gonna let you tell us what you're working on,
Sure.
and a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive into the episode.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't be long-winded, so I'm gonna keep it short. But my name is Louis Stockley, or Louis James Arthur Stockley Jr. There is another one out there. I grew up in a family of veterans. So my dad, uncle, mother, stepdad, anybody you could think of in my family has been in the Army of all
all
branches
right.
as far as I can remember. So naturally, I joined at 17 as well. I served 6 years in the Army. And then, I just had a crazy time transitioning out with everything that was going on. We can get into that later on. But long story short, what that led me to do is where I'm at right now. I spent the last 8 years coaching veterans in so many different ways for free as a life coach, first starting with fitness, starting with adding nutrition, adding mindset, neurolinguistic programming, Ayurvedic medicine, whatever you can think of. I found a way to wrap it into a program to help veterans heal themselves, but not only heal, stay healed. And I took that and it's evolved into what it is right now, which I just started a week ago, which is my community called Operation Dream Big. And the idea behind the community Operation Dream Big is to bring all the veterans in there, keep it into a safe space, a community where it's only vets, where they can do what's something that helped me out, unload their backpack. I found an organization a long time ago when I was in a rough place where I was able to unload everything I went through with my brothers and sisters, and they all were able to hear my story and not judge me. They thanked me for telling my story, and it just revolutionized everything I did going forward. So that's just a little bit about me.
Man, the conversation I had with Louis, unforgettable. So I'm going to kind of push it a little bit as we go
Yep,
through our
of course,
conversation,
of course.
because I want him to tell his story a little bit, and also because what you're doing, that's God's work, man. Thank you,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you for what you do.
I agree. It is.
Both of you, I mean, Melinda, you being a military spouse, thank you. Thank you for what you guys do for us and keeping us safe. So that'll lead us to a question I want to start with Melinda. This is a leadership podcast, so we're gonna mix and match, your backgrounds with some of the leadership. As a military spouse, Melinda, you've experienced unique challenges that require resilience and adaptability, right? How have these experiences shaped your leadership philosophy, and what lessons have you applied to your professional journey?
Wow, great question. Um, so I would say right away, adaptability comes in. Louis mentioned he had a difficult time transitioning out. I had a difficult time transitioning in from the
Mm,
civilian world to being a military spouse and being a special operations military spouse,
yep.
where my husband's part of a rapid deployment unit, which means, he can get a call and be out in a couple of hours and be in any part of the world. So that was very difficult transitioning in, especially in 2020 when we got married and moved from New York to Fort Campbell, which is Tennessee, Kentucky area. Not only was it cultural shock, it was a pandemic. Also pregnant, and a month later, he was deployed. So the resilience and adaptability was just one, trying to focus in, to Lewis's point, my mindset of what I can control. I couldn't control what was happening to him or politically, socially, economically. It was how can I set myself up right? And that was tapping into community, which was huge. At the start, it was very hard during COVID because a lot of people weren't convening, but through neighbor conversations, that's where I started formulating community. So I would say adaptability through being a special operations spouse helps me in my leadership by just saying we may have a certain plan, but know that we have to have contingencies, as my husband said, have operational plans, and when things work or don't work, after action reviews. In leadership, it's always talking about, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So different terminologies, but a way to say, how can we course correct? How can we move forward? What's in our locus of control?
That is awesome. Tanner, is there anything you want to share on that? I see the wheel spinning.
Well, yeah, the wheels are definitely spinning. First of all, both of you are doing God's work. I mean, Amin and I were talking yesterday about the power of incredible spouses.
Yes.
In trying times, in the storms, we always relate to how great things are in the good times, but when times are challenging, having that community beside you, having that pillar of strength besides you, it is so important. So thank you so much. I actually live in a military based town. I live in Bremerton, Washington, which has the Trident submarines, the big Navy town up here. We have the shipyard. So the military has been a part of my natural area, and my grandfathers, both of them were colonels in the Air Force.
Wow.
So I know intimately the challenges of being in a military family, both from personal experience and from the relationships of people around me. So I just can't thank you enough. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody regarding resilience, because adaptability is trained, right? Like we train ourselves to be adaptable in situations, but resilience is a muscle flex in my opinion. It's a mental muscle flex. So what has been an important piece of resilience training for you that transcends not just the military, but everybody that you work with in leadership or in relationships? I mean, special operations, you guys deal with loss in a different way too, so how can you give our listeners a quick little nugget on resilience?
Yes, I'll start with saying resilience. I was never really a fan of the word because I thought it had a negative connotation. Like, who wants to be resilient? That just meant trial after trial. But trying to reframe it and saying it's the bounce back from trials. And I always talk about the Phoenix mindset, meaning life is going to give you fires or challenges. It could either burn you to your demise, or you can be forged in it, rise, and help others thrive. And what I do is focus on activate, rise, and thrive. So how do you activate awareness? So when you're speaking about resilience, what are my emotions? What's it leading me? What's my fact? How can I control this? Rise, what are the challenges that I'm going through and how can I reframe them? And then thrive is in community. Who's out there that can be a support? A big one for me was the USO, and also it was a military spouse Christian organization that was helpful for me in delivering meals when I was pregnant and helping pray for me when my husband was deployed. And the very first weekend that I got there, our community faced a loss. So, focusing on resilience is not an individual only thing. It starts with us in our mindset, but we can become resilient together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for that. And we'll get right back to that. Now, Louis, you're an actual veteran.
Mhm.
And I know you mentioned in your intro a little bit about the offloading that was a little rocky. So transitioning from military service to leadership in the civilian world comes with its own set of challenges. How has your military influence, your military experience, influenced your leadership style? And what lessons have helped you excel?
Okay, so for me, one of the most profound moments for me was actually towards the end of my 6.5 year time in the military, deployed in Afghanistan. I was sitting there in Afghanistan, actually in between all the patrols and night shifts, working on my bachelor's degree, because I knew at that moment I'd made the decision that I'm going to get out and get into government service. So I'm working on my IT bachelor's degree, and I'm doing everything that's necessary to pursue that path because part of me wanted to be leadership. I was an E4, and E5 would be the next step up in the Army to be a sergeant. But for some reason, they said, within that level of leadership, there's already enough people there. So even though you're exceeding at a very high level in awards and all these different standards and categories, there's just no space to move you up to the next rank. So I said, if I can't advance here, it's time to move out. And so I haven't made that decision. The test came. So they said, halfway through the deployment, I knew this was my decision. They said, we want to promote you. So we are going to send you to a board here in Afghanistan, and you're going to sit in front of high ranking individuals like the major and the sergeant major and things like that. And you're going to go through this testing that we give you so that you can be promoted to E5. And I prayed about it, and I had to say, my decision is I'm getting out. It's time for me to go. Something told me it's time to go. And usually you don't do this, okay? So I'm in my uniform, sweating bullets, standing in front of the door, and you're supposed to knock with confidence on this door, and they tell you, come in, and you're going to walk in, you're going to stand in front of these three high-powered individuals that could snap their finger and send you on a trajectory that you don't want to be on, and you have to go through the testing. I did something that had never been done before. I went in and respectfully said, I don't see the point in doing this because I'm planning on getting out of the Army. And right then and there, what you would usually expect is to get chewed at, get yelled at by that military leadership and things like that. But what ended up happening was the sergeant major, a female, told me, okay, I hear you on that. You can step back out and we'll talk in my office later. And I'm like, talk in your office later? Oh my God, something's going to happen. But I go in her office later, and the first thing she asked me is, I hear you want to get out. So tell me, what's your plan? As a leader, she didn't chew me out for not following what she thought was her standard and what should be done. We're going to offer to promote you. You should take that. She asked me, what is your plan? And I told her, I'm working on my degree. As soon as I get out, I'm going to go join the government service. And that's how I'm going to serve. And she went through the plan with me, checked off things that didn't fit, helped me make the plan better, and then sent me on my way. And I was half expecting that that was going to go the other way. But that taught me right there how leadership is when the culture of the leader is to listen to what the people that are under them are saying, then they don't feel like they have to hold to this strict standard and do what everybody else does. They can actually, make the right decisions here for that person. She cared about me as a person and an individual rather than whether I'm a guy that's going to fit whatever standard they had. So I took that with me and said, I can think outside of the box now because she's at one of the highest levels as an NCO, Sergeant Major, running that place in Afghanistan. And she stepped outside of the box and supported me in the way that was best for me because it was clear on my face that that was the decision I was making. They weren't going to be able to force me to stay in and be promoted anymore. So I took it with me. And it just built up this mindset of think outside of the box. As long as even if things aren't going my way, I know that I'll always be able to figure out what's going on by just getting outside of that box and trying other options. And so when I faced those hardships transitioning out, and it took me 8 months to get into the government, so terminal leave ran out. We had no insurance. My wife is pregnant. We even got screwed over by an insurance guy after that point because he said, I'm a veteran, trust me, and I will help you out. You pay me thousands of dollars, here's your insurance card, and you'll be good. We go to an OB appointment with my pregnant wife. Terminal leave's gone. Savings are drying up. We think we're good with this insurance. We do the ultrasounds. We're happy. And we walk in there and they look at the card. They're kind of confused about it. The lady goes in the back, talks to her boss, and they come out. They look us in the face and tell us nothing's covered. You have a bill for $20,000 if you want to continue care all the way up to the birth of your son. And so even through all of those challenges, I'm thinking outside the box. I'm still working hard. I applied to over 600 government jobs. I did everything I needed to do to keep moving forward just because of the example that leader showed me.
Wow. Ooh, so much, so much. Tanner, you want to jump in before?
Well, so first, I want to say something that I heard powerfully from both of you is your faith.
Yeah.
And that is so incredible, right? Melinda, the way that you reached out to Christian organizations to help in your needs. Louis, the way that you prayed before you made the decision.
Yep.
And you trusted God in what he was calling you to do. Amin and I both have very, very similar stories to actually the situation that you just described. So I was wondering if you could delve a little bit deeper in the time after when you got out, God called you, God told you, hey, I want you to walk this different path. And then things didn't work out the way that you expected them to. We have this expectation that, God, I'm going to follow your path. I hear you talking to me. I'm going to do what you've called me to do. And then we find ourselves in the wilderness, right? Again, with resilience, how did you stay resilient during that time?
The number one way that I've always found to be resilient in all my family, I did this exercise with them and you all should try this too. You go to people that know you well and say, if I had one superpower, what would you say it is? And for me, they said it's mind over matter. And so they said, for some reason, you always talk big, but you talk about this stuff and then we turn around and you actually did it, like getting into government and getting these college degrees and stuff. And so from that, I keep in my mind firmly what I actually want to happen. So when I pray, it's not necessarily to ask God for anything but the energy, the strength, and the certainty to keep going, because I already know what I want. I already know what I'm walking towards. And then I also, on the other side of it, I'm open-minded to if that path is going to shift differently, So I really, really wanted to get into government because of the pay, the benefits, the security that I saw for it. But I was like, God, if you see me doing something different, like serving in law enforcement or something like that, just send me a sign along the way and I will openly explore that. And so having that blend between knowing what you want, focusing on that, and being, open-minded gives you the resilience to say, when this happens, when something goes wrong, is this a point for me to pivot or should I just keep going? And my emotions are just detached from those decisions. I make a wise decision in those moments because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your will, not mine, Lord.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I were to ask you what my superpower is, what would you say?
Forgiveness, man.
Amen.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah,
That was a
absolutely.
setup. Sorry, that was a setup.
Yeah.
Melinda and Louis, he knows. So
I know Tanner very very well. So well, the same. Well, let's ask Melinda. If we would ask your best friend or your husband, what's your superpower? What would it be? What would they say?
Mindset.
Mindset.
Although, it comes and goes. I have the mindset like whatever fires keep happening, God has me still here. I'm gonna keep going and keep glowing and growing and trusting in Him.
That's awesome.
ooh, I
That's
like that a lot too. Going, glowing, and growing.
she has these
Yeah.
things, man. She comes up.
Hmm.
First, it was
Yeah.
art. Um,
Yeah.
I was the triple G's. Where this is going. So let's get into your work, what you guys are doing. If you want to start us off, Melinda, I mean, in what you're doing now. Talk to us a little bit about that, and some of the ups and downs, the good parts of it, the challenges, and how has your leadership affected those what you're doing currently.
Sure. So I'll start how the military affected what I'm doing. As I mentioned, I had a hard time transitioning from civilian life living in New York with a family, community, and career and network to coming to Tennessee was hard. Eventually taking time off to be a mom to a beautiful daughter and struggling with my identity. I felt like, especially in COVID, very isolated, secluded while my husband was away, trying to find myself. So I started doing some consulting and coaching. And then that led to great full-time work. And then, of course, as things happen personally and professionally, another fire happens. And again, adjustment comes along. So now I'm back to executive coaching and leadership development work and focusing on how do I best support individuals from the classroom to the boardroom with a specialty focused on millennials who run 75% of the United States workforce. How can we best support them where they understand, how other methods worked and didn't work, how to adapt and innovate like the younger generation, so that way they can lead us to globally compete. What's been working and not working? Well, as a solopreneur, mom, military spouse, wife, there's a lot of identities. So what's been working is how do I use that to tell my stories to best support and bring value to others? So the connection pieces has been working. The hard part too is just there's a lot of challenges, especially with executive orders, fundings, solopreneur to try to make it all happen. So trying to find a way to integrate while also taking care of myself so I can fill my cup to help others and bring value has been somewhat of a challenge. But to Lewis's point, sleeping, eating, working out has to be ways to prioritize myself to do what I need to do.
I love that. I love that. And the self-realization that you have to help yourself first before you can help others. And for a long time, I forgot that. I know as a young leader, for me, it was a struggle because even in my personal life, and for I would say the first half of my life, it was all I was always giving. It was all
Mhm,
about how am I helping someone else? How am I taking care of my kids? How am I taking care of my parents? How am I taking care of my sister and late brother? It's not it was never about me until it came to a crashing halt that it was,
mhm,
hold on a second, what are we doing? I can't help anyone. I need to help myself first.
mhm.
And I ended up in a really bad depression. And getting out of that and realizing that, hold on, I got to take time for myself, care for me, my mental health first before I can help others. Because if not, I'm just no good to others. You just like walk. I was just a walking zombie.
Yeah, I thank you so much for sharing that because I went through depression, anxiety too, especially with postpartum depression, and it was in that
Oh,
deepest time, yes, that I had to really make a change because my daughter's livelihood literally was on the line. And that's when it told me I really need to shift.
yeah. Louis, you want to jump in there?
Yep, of course. I'm just curious, real quick, before I talk a bit about myself, is when you made the shift, what was the first thing you did?
I prayed, fasted, cried out. So the very first thing was talk to God. Like I was in a very, very dark place after postpartum.
Hmm.
Husband gone. Always when she's gone, what do they say? Murphy's Law happens.
Yep.
Daughter gets sick, hospital, things go wrong, and it just felt like crash and burn. I was like, I gotta get up. I'm in a very, very bad state. So prayed, soul cry, I would say.
Wow. Okay, so for me, um, where do I begin? So for me, getting out, like I said, my main focus was if I get a job and I make enough money and our benefits are secure, everything else is going to be good, right? So I'm like, I don't need to take care of myself. I don't need to worry about my PTSD or ADHD or depression or social anxiety or any of the stuff I'm struggling with. I'll just make as much money as I can, and then those things will work themselves out, right? So I did that. I pursued the highest levels of the government. I achieved a level of GS 14 at age 23 in the government. And I was basically running things within the IT, taking care of programs and stuff like that, making a six-figure income, doing all those amazing things on paper, getting awards and accolades every year. And in the background, I'm struggling hard. And it was going on quietly. I could ignore it because I'm like, oh, a new achievement, a new achievement. But then I hit that big goal. Oh my God, I made six figures. And then this question pops up in the back of your mind. What's next? I didn't know. I didn't have an answer to that question. And a lot of the people I help, they don't have an answer to that question either. And that's when you get floored. You hit your rock bottom because you don't know what your purpose is and you fall by the wayside. And that's exactly what happened to me. Now, I had played video games my entire licensed childhood, and they never were unhealthy until that moment. When I said, what's next? And I didn't have an answer, all these emotions welled up in me. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I poured it into playing video games. And when you say video games, not the healthy, oh, I'll play for an hour and I'm good. It was, I played on my phone, on my computer. I had a big screen in the bedroom that I would play on. And I would literally ignore my wife, ignore my kids, and just be on the game or working at my job. So I was a functional addict, still achieving at the high level at work and just playing games. And I'm in my mind still like everybody around me, because your friend group is important too. They're telling me, oh, it's just games, it's harmless. But here I am, every now and then I would feel guilty about it. I would try to quit. And then a week later, I'm right back at it full swing. Fast forward to many years later of this same behavior. And I'm talking, this behavior was so bad. My wife would be sitting there watching me play in the games, wishing that I would give her that kind of attention and focus, and I feel really bad about it still, but I've done everything I can to change that. But fast forward to my rock bottom moment. I spent thousands of dollars on video games in a month on things you can't even physically touch, just options and stuff in the video games. And I knew it was wrong and I felt guilty about it. So I had hid it from my wife, from my spouse, from my partner. And she found out because the statement came in the mail, the receipts came due. And of course, we were making six figures. So it wasn't about the money, it was about the trust that was broken by me spending that enormous amount of money on these games. And she kicked me out that night. She said, I don't know what's going on. Enough is enough. This has been going on too long. You got to go. And so I pack up a duffel bag. I headed to this hotel room that's like 15 minutes away from the house. And sitting in that room, God spoke to me. And he's like, and he kind of showed me something. He showed me two versions of Louis. The version of Louis that's divorced, has no relationship with his kids, sitting in a basement somewhere as a roommate, just playing his video games while his life is taking a dump. And then the other version of Louis, without the games, his life is moving where it needs to move. And I made that choice like I'm pressing a touch screen. I want to be over here with this guy. And so I started saying, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to move forward from that point? And I picked up the phone. I called my wife and I said, look, I'm done. I need to change. I need to fix this. Whatever I can do, I'm coming home tomorrow and I'm going to make this right. So it sounds easy, but quitting cold turkey is not easy at all. But I did it. I did it cold turkey. I didn't do 12 steps or anything like that. I think, he was looking out for me every step of the way. Because when I went home the next day, I grabbed whatever I could sell, took it down to GameStop, sold it, deleted every game off my phone, locked down my computer, and deleted the account so I couldn't get back to them. And I white knuckled my way through. Now, here's the key piece that's going to tie all this in. It's about what I do. So I am crawling back up from rock bottom, and I'm not even thinking about anybody else but get myself right for my wife and my kids. So my time was about work, working out, listening to motivational content, reading the Bible, training, doing whatever I can to keep increasing my personal growth. And my wife is all on board with it. So I'm getting up at 3:50 in the morning to start this process before I get on the bus and I head into my government job at work. And we get to the holiday season where things usually slow down and I keep going. A buddy of mine who was a military policeman for 10 years, and in his unit, they deploy every other year. And he stayed in that unit. So every other year for 10 years, he was deployed. So the psychological issues, the PTSD was rampant by the time he got out. And so he's telling me about the tough time he's having in New York in this apartment by himself. His family is not supportive or understanding of what he's going through. He has nobody. And he's a friend of my wife too. And so my wife and I talk and we're like, he needs to come stay with us. We have an extra room. My kids are crazy. So no matter what you want to do, getting lost in your own thoughts, when my kids get around you and start pulling on you and tugging on you and stuff like that, you can't help but laugh and start being a big kid. And that's what happened. They helped open them up. But what really shifted was he started catching wind of me getting up early in the morning, going down in my basement where I have my little pull-up bar, my content going and stuff like that. And by week 2 of him being there, he's like, what are you doing down there? I'm like, just working on me, just making sure every day I'm doing something for myself. I didn't think anything of it. And then the next week, week 3, he shows up. So he set his own alarm, comes down there and says, let's do it. I'm going to do this with you because I really like what's going on here. And I would like to feel like that too. And so it's crazy because I started coaching him without realizing it. I was just doing what I did for myself and allowing him to follow along. And we started having deeper conversations about what we dealt with when we were deployed. I started to feel that camaraderie that I missed when I was back in Afghanistan and all that. And it did something for me, did something for him. And so when he started, he was 300 pounds, massively overweight. And can you imagine a 300-pound guy using a standalone pull-up bar, just doing his first pull-up? That's what he did in my basement. The bar was screaming for life as this man did his first pull-up, and we just laughed. We laughed about it. We had such a great time. Imagine 2 veterans out there on the street in front of the houses at 4 a.m. It's dark. It's a winter night, yelling and laughing as we do wind sprints up and down the street, just training ourselves. That was us. And so by the time this man left, he was 200 pounds straight. And we had talked so much that he figured out that his purpose, that what he wanted to do was to still serve. So he went out for the police academy after that. Now, he didn't get that happy ending of joining the police academy because he had PTSD all over his record and they weren't comfortable with it. But he parlayed that to the next step because of all the coaching we did and said, I'll become head of security at a psychiatric facility, and did that. And now he's just going around in different security places. And it's wild because that same exact guy is one of the people who I check in on every year. He has a daughter now and he's a single dad and he's still doing his thing. He's having his struggles, but his mind is always where it needs to be. So he's always climbing right back to where he needs to go. And he is in my veteran community, which is what all this is about. When I started coaching him, it was just that fitness and mindset stuff. Later on, I said, let me post on Instagram a fitness workout and see what happens, because I saw everybody else was doing it. And so that started me out as a fitness coach. Nobody would stay healthy with fitness after they stopped working with me. I would check in and they would be like, oh, I feel like crap again. So I said, maybe it's nutrition. I started teaching people nutrition in my programs. And then same result. Nobody stays good, right? Yep. And so I moved into mindset. I said, I'll bring a program together that tackles workouts, nutrition, and mindset. And so every person that I've worked with ever since I implemented that is still good. I mean, I've worked with a WWE wrestler, an MMA fighter who's won his last 3 fights. I've got a guy who took over the trucking company he was working in. And when he was working with me, his girlfriend had a miscarriage and he was just going through one life challenge after another. And they all took everything I taught them and they're still good even years later. So I'm taking all of that and I put it into my veteran community, which I just started last week. And I'm putting everything I know, downloading it onto courses and video structure to teach people how to overcome ADHD, PTSD, all the things that I've fought through, white knuckled it through and learned the methods. I'm teaching everybody in that group how to do. And then here's the big vision. The big vision for Operation Dream Big, that's what my group is called, is to get enough guys in there, get enough results. I have a specialist, a friend of mine, another veteran, that can take all the educational data of it, package it up, and then I'm going to actually propose to the VA that they partner with me. And like you get your checklist and your standard issue when it's time to leave the military, part of that list will be join Operation Dream Big and go through all these courses so that when you're transitioning, it's a lot easier. You don't have to go through the stuff that I went through. So long story. Sorry about that, but that's everything.
Oh man, I know this parts of your story resonate a lot with Tanner's story, so I'll let him chime in first before I say a few words. Other than thank you, man. What you're doing is amazing.
No problem.
Yeah, what I heard from both of your stories is rock bottom is the beginning. I've struggled with abuse and substance abuse and depression, severe depression, and rock bottom will teach us stuff that mountaintops never can.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. There's a saying in addiction recovery that you can't deny someone their bottom. Right. And oftentimes what we do is we see someone spiraling and we try and help them out when we really can't. They have to go through their own personal journey. I love what Nick Vujicic says. And if you're not familiar with who he is, he's number one public speaker in the world. He's the guy that was born without arms and without legs. And he says very succinctly, we're all on our separate journey. Right? Every single one of us is all on our own separate journey. We can come alongside one another and show them that their journey doesn't have to be as painful as we make it out to be. So many of us, we find that we try and isolate because of shame. We isolate because we don't want to show someone else, hey, this is what I'm really struggling with. And what I love, what I think is so beautiful about both of your stories is that, Melinda, you reached out to community around you, right? You said, hey, you know what, I've lost my community in New York, but I'm here in Tennessee and I know that there's a community around me that I can reach out to, and whether I find the help that I need immediately or it takes a little bit of time, I know that it's there. That is an incredible act of bravery, right? Incredible act of bravery. Louis, what I love about your story is you recognize that oh my God, I'm in a place where I'm not comfortable with myself, with what I've done, right? And again, in an incredible act of bravery, you said, I'm going to stop this right now. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself better, right? And hopefully, you were very blessed in your wife being as understanding as she was. Hopefully, I can get my family back. Hopefully, I can take the steps that are necessary to get my health on track, to get my mindset on track. Uh, then you saw the ripple effect. You saw that your friend who was struggling, by no intention of your own, really saw the example of what you were doing in your life and changed his life, which then you took as another great sign from God of, I can do this for others. I can help others who are struggling the same way. In my personal journey, I lost a marriage to alcohol. And I lost it not because, I tell my boys, I have two young boys, they're 13 and 7. I tell them alcohol didn't destroy my marriage. Lies did. Alcohol was a substance abuse disorder that I had because, much like you, Louis, I wasn't dealing with the trauma that I had developed over my entire life. I just masked it, and I talk about this all the time, that I believe that alcohol is devil in liquid form. It's the most widely abused substance on the planet aside from caffeine. And my partner, she posted something on social media a month ago or 2 months ago. It said, if you can quit drinking in a culture that idolizes it, because our culture does idolize drinking. If you can quit drinking in a culture that idolizes it, you can do anything.
Amen.
Not everybody, and I recognize that not everybody has an issue with alcohol, right? I mean, I know plenty of people that can have one drink or 2 drinks and be just fine, right? That was never me. I drink my share and your share and Amin's share and Melinda's share. I'd drink it all, right? Because I was suppressing things that I needed to work with. The other thing that I think is so powerful about both of your stories and your testimonies and your journeys, what I coach on specifically is authenticity, right? And it's faith-based authenticity. But I firmly believe that the only way that you can align your authenticity and you can find your purpose and you can be your most authentic self is by aligning your mind, body, and spirit, right? It's not just one piece. All 3 of them have to come together. If you want the energy that controls rooms, it comes from your authenticity, right? Because people see through bullshit. They may not see it right away, right? But they see through it eventually. Your integrity will show that you're not as integral as you say you are. Your honesty will show that you're not as honest as you say you are. You'll present as something that you aren't really, and people will see it. And when they do, you lose more trust than you ever would if you just came out and said, hey, you know what? I'm not quite perfect, because none of us are. None of us are perfect, right? But I am working so diligently on making sure that those pieces of me align with who I am and who I present to you. And both of your stories had such incredible examples of aligning those 3 things. I'm so proud to have met the both of you. Melinda, this is our second time meeting. Louis, this is our first time meeting. I mean, you told me yesterday that we were going to have 2 incredible guests on, and you really undershot it, man. You undershot it. You both are powerful and impactful. And I'm so proud to get to know you. I'm so enamored by the work that you're doing. God bless you both, and thank you so much for being on.
So we have about 10 minutes left, so I'll give you each a few minutes. You got 3 to 5 minutes to finish off. Tell us whatever you want to share with us.
Yeah, what's next for you guys? And how can people reach you?
Yes. Go ahead, Melinda. You can go first, and then Louis.
Sure. People can reach me on LinkedIn, Melinda Ramirez. All my contact information is there. What's next is, if anything resonated this with you, reach out to me. I'll be sharing information, because I'm a firm believer that leadership is not a title or a position, it's action and impact. And the reason why I chose leadership development, because leadership isn't only in the workplace, it's at home, it's in our communities and in our churches. And I believe in transformational leadership that, to Louis's point, you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. So we need to do the work that we need to do to activate our awareness, our potential, so we can be right, so we can help people lead teams, organization, and make societal impact. And I have the phoenix as my spirit animal because I feel like in all of life's fires, you have that decision and with God by your side that you can get up and continue to rise. And being authentic, as you said, Tanner, and sharing those stories, being courageous enough to say, I've been through this and share what you have access to, give that privilege back to help inspire others. So life's fires doesn't burn them up. So that's my mission in life, is just a world where individuals just feel that power to activate, rise, and thrive together.
Awesome. Go Art. Triple
The art of the phoenix.
That's it. That's it. Louis, your turn. And you got to tell us your spirit animal. And then Tanner and myself will go because this is something that me and Tanner used to do a lot.
I'll start with my spirit animal because it's funny that you say Phoenix. That's what it is. Here's what I said. Since I'm out of government employment after 17 years, I decided to go all in on me and being an entrepreneur. I said that once I make my set amount of impacted people, like 500 people have been impacted through what I'm doing right now, I'm actually going to get a tattoo of a phoenix right here on my neck that I drew 7 years ago and made that promise to myself. So just a little story for you. That's my spirit animal, and that's what I plan to do with it. And so when I get on video and I see myself, I'll always have that anchor of I did it, I'm helped that many people. But here's what I'll say to any vets that happen to be watching, or anybody that's struggling as well that's watching. One of the three different things that I discovered that helps people to transform is number one, vulnerability. If I was not able to be vulnerable with my wife and kids about what I was going through and that these video games are not harmless, I'd still be in that place to this day. So any vet that's struggling, it is okay to be vulnerable. And if you have trouble with that, find the closest person to you, be vulnerable about something small, pay attention to how they react. And if you feel like that reaction is something you're comfortable with, open up more and get that support system built. The second thing I say is know what your gifts are. If you know what your gift is and you're pursuing that, actively working on that gift, you'll actually find the third thing, your purpose. And the purpose is what's going to solve a lot of the problems we have. Because when I felt it was my purpose to coach people and to help people, I said, is a coach the guy that falls off on video games anymore? Is a coach the guy that's disconnected from his wife and his kids anymore? Is he these different things? And in my mind, I didn't believe that that's what I needed to be for them. So I changed. I just changed through osmosis. And so if you want to find me, because this is all I do all day, is just talk to people like that intuitively. You can find me on most platforms as Vet Coach Louis or Louis Stockley. So Louis Stockley or Vet Coach Louis. I got the biggest following on TikTok. That's where I usually do most of my work, and I'm working on long form stuff on YouTube just to teach people everything I know that way. So if you want to find me there. And in every one of these places, there's a link in my profile that links to Operation Dream Big. That's the only thing I'll ever push on all of my platforms, is to get veterans to join that group. So whether you're a vet or you have a vet that's struggling right now, I'm building a safe space for them where they can come in. They can go through all my processes, whichever one they want to work on, they'll pick a course and work on it. And they have an entire community where you can literally drop in the chat. I'm not feeling like I want to be here today. And everybody is going to pour love onto you. They will pour love onto you. And I have my foundational members are all guys that I serve with, guys that I would trust with my life, guys that will hop in that damn car and go down there if they have to check on you. So that's the power of that community that I built. And I just want to get more people in there to experience the healing.
Awesome. And we want to make sure that the audience hears all of it. So if you're a vet, you're struggling, get with Louis. Tanner, tell us your animal spirit and closing words.
All right. So my spirit animal is an octopus. I absolutely, I love octopus. They're masters of camouflage. They're regenerative. They used to think that they were solitary animals, but they've actually found a species of octopus off the coast of Australia that build communities with each other, and they're kind of like Vikings in this way. They build their communities out of the bones of the animals that they consume, which is, it's kind of crazy, but they're incredibly intelligent, and incredibly adaptable. Again, thank you both so much for being on here. You can find me at tannerthorp.com. I'm also on all the different platforms. My big thing is go forth and do great things, and that's what I want to inspire others to do. That's what I want to help people grow in. And you can do big things in your family. You can go forth and do big things in your churches, in your communities, in your businesses, in your leadership, in your following, because I think truly great leaders are also really great followers. And I think a lot on this of King David. And King David was anointed from a very young age, as a young boy, that he was going to be the future king. But first he had to follow, and he had to follow Saul, who 2 different times tried to kill him, and still had to bring honor to the kingdom of Israel. So I think great leaders are great followers. If I could, for just a second, I just want to offer up a prayer for both of you and your families. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Melinda and Louis joining us today. Lord, you bring such incredible people into our lives. We don't usually do this on the NLA podcast, so this is new for us. But Lord, I feel called by you to share a prayer over them, over their families, over the impact and the work that they're doing. Lord, bless them and keep them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank
Go
you.
forth and do great things. For me, my spirit animal is a dolphin. Why? Because dolphins are one of the smartest species, but more importantly, because dolphins are about connection, especially human connection, and that's what I'm about. My first guiding principle is loving people, loving self. So thank you. I love this episode having you guys on. Hopefully, we can bring you
We got
on.
it. We got to get Melinda's spirit animal.
Phoenix.
The Phoenix.
Oh, yours is the Phoenix also. All right.
Yeah, like the Phoenix
Nice.
United, Louis.
Nice.
Yep. So yes, you can reach any of these lovely people on the platforms they share. We'll also have that when the episode comes out. We'll make sure we put all your information on there. Thank you so much again, and hopefully we'll see you soon in the NLA episode. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity. God bless you all and everybody listening.